were you on with me what did we do at the convention?
The Southern Baptist Convention?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did something after that. I think we did, or I'm pretty sure we did. I was your first guest on your new studio. So I did do that.
And was that at the time?
No, that was before that. I think we did a follow-up thing at the SBC.
Okay, yeah.
Because we talked a little bit about what happened with the election of Ed Litton, and of course that was before
all the stuff
came out. Yeah.
And so there have been lots of developments since the meeting. And where's the next meeting at?
Well, the next meeting is supposed to be in Anaheim. I just don't see how they're going to hold it there. I mean, LA has just recently said that you can't even go into a restaurant unless you're vaccinated, have the card. So I don't know. I know they desperately want to do it there because that works at the benefit, I think, of the woke. But and maybe it still will, in the sense of it'll keep certain people away that don't want to carry a card to go into a restaurant. But it's going to be really hard for them to try to hold a convention there. A lot can change from now in June, but a lot can get worse.
A lot can get a lot worse. Yeah, because here's the article. Los Angeles passes one of the strictest U.S. vaccination mandates. Los Angeles City Council on October 6th approved one of the strictest vaccine mandates in the country, requiring proof of vaccination to enter indoor restaurants, movie theaters, salons, shopping centers, and many more indoor venues. Yeah. People have to provide proof at gyms, sports arenas, museums, spas, indoor government facilities, malls, restaurants, and bars. Yeah. For people with religious or medical exemptions, good luck getting those, negative tests within 72 hours of entry will be required, according to the ordinance, which doesn't make mention of natural immunity offered by a previous infection. So what we know is 13 to 27 times more effective is if you got it and you've recovered from it. Doesn't count.
Right.
Doesn't count. The level of irrationality is astonishing. But that's that issue. I can't see that changing before next year.
No, I don't either. Not before June. And I don't see how they can have a successful convention there. I mean, most people are just not going to get on a plane.
How you define successful.
You're right. But I mean, just your average person, and maybe that's what it will work towards against. It's just not going to buy a plane ticket and fly out there to not be able to eat anywhere.
Right.
Or whatever it may be. And, there are many, many people that are vaccinated, but there are many, many people that are just not going to. They've had it already and they don't feel the need to.
Well, it's not just feel the need to, it's dangerous. I mean, if you already have the antibodies and then you get vaccinated again, even Fauci, when he was asked a few weeks ago, why should they do that? He's just like, well, we're looking at the data on that. But you're still mandating it. What do you mean you're looking at the data on that? People recognize that this is no longer has anything to do with a virus, has nothing to do with health. Oops, we shouldn't have said any of that. We'll get kicked off.
Yeah, it's probably done.
It's probably getting kicked off right now. So yeah, I had heard that Anaheim was coming up. Now but this one is an in-between year.
It is, but it's a very odd in-between year in this sense. The question is, normally the president, the sitting president, if he's only had one term, which is true of Litton, runs uncontested. He still has to be elected. So yeah, he doesn't just get a 2-year term. Okay. But what happens is I don't know of any time, I'm sure there probably has been, but I don't know of any time that one's been contested. So the question is, will he run again? If he does run again, will he be contested? And then what will that look like? So it's not just a slam dunk in one sense, but it should be a shoe-in, if you will, under normal circumstances, but we're not under normal circumstances.
No, we saw at the last one that if you control the committees that determine the form of the resolutions and the presentation of the resolutions, and then there's that one white-haired guy that I've seen for years now up there telling the president,
the parliamentarian,
what to do. And well, not only that, but which microphone to go to. And I mean, this guy's running the show.
Yeah, Barry's a pretty good guy, most people think. In fact, the folks that are more woke don't really like Barry. In fact, they say that they're hoping he doesn't doesn't come back. But most people view Barry as very even-handed. Now, at the same time, he is directing, which mic, but I think he's told by somebody else. I'm not totally sure about that. And then he tells them. But I've always found Barry to be pretty even-handed. But
it just didn't seem like you could really expect a full-throated discussion in that context.
No, that's part of the problem. It is a well-oiled machine. It is a very planned out, show. I'll put that in quotes. They, for a good perfect example was what happens with the North American Mission Board. I and others were at the mic to ask some serious questions. They see me at the mic for sure. They've seen me before, and for some reason this year I couldn't get one time that, even though it was a mic multiple times. One time I was the first one up, and somehow it got around to other people. But they had this long video, this long presentation. When I got to the mic, they said that he would take there was a total of 15 minutes, that he would take 7 minutes. He ended up taking like 13 minutes. And then a question from a guy across the room. And then when it came time for me, well, we're done. It really is sad. There's not a way to really have good interaction. And what they're doing is they're pumping themselves up. Feel good about the NAM, feel good about IMB, feel good about all these things. Look at all we're doing. And I'm sure some of it is true and wonderful, should be celebrated. But you can't conduct real business. You just can't.
You can't challenge things. What is the place for challenging what's going on in what seems to be the deep state of the Southern Baptist Convention that put someone like Russell Moore in the position he was in. There are actually some people who have suggested that Russell Moore was a political operative.
Yeah, there was a guy that did that one time.
Wasn't it? But it wasn't a Southern Baptist thing. It was at
no, it was at a pre-G3 thing that event happened, and nobody was willing to call out names with this one guy, and he addressed it, and been proven to be true.
Very, very true. Very well. If you had known if anybody paid attention to his history, his background, it was pretty obvious. But then what he had been doing, and now it seems. I had some interaction with this guy. Maybe you remember his name. He was like one of the chief ethicists for the ERLC. And then he, like the week after the election, goes to work for Ed Litton. Yeah. If that's not the deep state sending its operatives over to operate things and to continue controlling things, what else could it possibly be?
Now, I was told multiple times that just be patient. Ed is going to fully repent and is going to do a complete mea culpa. And I mean, I was told this for a long, long time. Just, put your
jets on idle.
Yep, jets on idle. Put your powder away.
Yep.
Just hold on. And, I did for a long time. Most people don't realize that I said very little early on about this issue with Ed Litton.
You were busy talking about Kamala Harris.
Exactly. Well, that was back in February, early before that. But thank you for bringing that up. So I've got a paper cut you can pour lemon juice into when you want to later.
I try to keep you humble, brother.
But I was holding off a lot because I kept being told he was going to, and I had hope for that. I really did. I prayed that he would do that. Early on, people were immediately piling on and mocking him and all of those things early into it. And I even said publicly, that's not really a helpful way to bring someone to repentance early on in that. And so, rather than the memes, let's speak truth, call it out. But now he's really made himself a laughing stock, so much so that Carl Truman even said that, if Carl Truman is saying, I think he's the last person to be bombastic on Twitter.
Right.
And if he is coming out and saying that Ed Litton has made himself a laughing stock, what a black eye on the Southern Baptist Convention. And I think it makes a laughing stock of every single entity head who has not spoken out and called for either spoken out against what he did or called for his resignation. So you only have Jason Keith Allen, who is publicly, he was the first to come out and publicly address the plagiarism. And then Al Mohler, when asked in chapel about it, gave a straightforward answer as far as the plagiarism goes. And then a group of elders from, I think it's Kinswood Baptist Church up in Kentucky, where two Southern Baptist Theological Seminary professors, Denny Burke and Jim Hamilton, are elders. And they released a letter a couple of weeks ago calling for Ed Litton's resignation. So the only seminary, anybody connected to the seminary that has called for his resignation are both from Southern Seminary. Everybody else has been silent. Of course, Southwestern had him in and propped him up.
It's one thing to be silent. It's another thing to actually provide some kind of a, what was that? Here, make an excuse and we won't challenge you on it type of a situation. That was amazing.
When it happened, I told someone when it was occurring, I said, I believe what's happening here is they're using Southwestern Chapel as a clearinghouse for him. Give him the platform, let him, defend it. They didn't do anything of contradicting what he said, but allowed him to just get up and give a full-throated excuse. I wouldn't even say a defense. He just right out said it's not plagiarism. And that they were doing that so that he could then feel free to roam around and preach at all the other seminaries. And interestingly enough, I was right about that too, because as soon as that happened, he was there. 4 of the seminaries, the only 2 that have not scheduled him to speak in chapel this fall or spring, are Southern and Midwestern. So all the others are having him in. So Gateway, New Orleans, Southwestern will have him back to preach, and Southeastern.
Gateway, yeah. I once taught there.
I have heard of that.
Yeah. It wasn't called Gateway back then, but anyway. Yeah, so the future of the convention seems rather murky these days, as far as how there can be it just doesn't seem that the situation parallels what happened back in the 80s.
No, in fact, I'm more uncertain about the SBC, or maybe on the other side, more certain that it's not going to go well today than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's very sad for me to see, because I've been Southern Baptist my whole life. And when I came, I'd gone to Moody and DTS. And one of the main reasons I did is, even though I was in the Southern Baptist Church, is this was in the late 80s, mid 80s and late 80s. I saw what was going on in the Southern Baptist schools. I saw the liberalism. I grew up under a liberal Southern Baptist pastor who graduated from Southeastern during the height of its liberal days. And when I came out, I graduated in 1993 from DTS. I'm trying to decide at that point, am I going to stay in the Southern Baptist Convention? I still was in it. I've never belonged to any church other than the Southern Baptist Church, even when I was in seminary. But am I going to pastor in the Southern Baptist Convention? And that was the very year that I'm graduating that Al Mohler goes to Southern. And I'm extremely hopeful, because I'm like, yes, I want to go back. The Lord's given me a history for a good reason. I'm going to go back to the SBC, and I'll feel comfortable doing that. And so I'm heartbroken to look and see the change. But here's the difference between the 80s and now. And one of the leaders of the conservative resurgence said this to me. He said, back in the 80s, we had the pulpits. So we didn't have the institutions, right, but you had, the Adrian Rogers, the W.A. Criswells, the Charles Stanleys, and though, there's things that we would differ with all 3 of those guys on in one degree or another. They were staunch conservatives regarding inerrancy and all of those other things. And they were from the pulpit preaching these things. Today, Southern Baptist pulpits are filled with woke young men. And so we not only have issues in the academy, we have issues in the pulpits. And so it's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time that I get negative stuff, it's either Southeastern, well, it's Southeastern, Southern, Boyce, New Orleans, is where it's coming from. The students, you look them up, you click on their stuff, and it's like, wow, they're really sold out to this type of stuff. And it's sad.
There's good men in every one of those institutions.
Course,
there really are. I mean, there's good men at Southwestern whom I love and respect, at Southeastern and Southern and Midwestern. I don't know many people at New Orleans or Gateway, but it's not like they're all bad, theologically rotted out. In fact, I talk regularly with individuals at each of those institutions who are quite concerned about a variety of things and want things to turn as well. But it's a machine, and that machine will run you over very, very quickly. They've wanted to run me over. They've tried to do that, some of the people. But, I have just continued to speak what I believe to be true about these things. But I think there's going to be a mass exodus in the next year or so.